Have you ever stayed late at work, convinced that you're the only one in the building, only to hear a creak from behind, a shadow darting across the hall, or the unsettling feeling that you're being watched? You might laugh it off, telling yourself it's just your mind playing tricks on you. But what if it wasn't? What if something, or someone, really was there? Tonight, I'm going to share with you 3 true creepy stories from people who had the misfortune of experiencing something truly terrifying while alone at work. These aren't urban legends or spooky tales. These are the real accounts of people just like you, trapped in places they thought were safe, until they weren't. Story 1. The office phone call. It was just another Tuesday evening. The fluorescent lights buzzed above, casting an unforgiving white glow over the empty office. It was just Mark and the hum of his computer, the rest of the staff having left hours ago. He loved the quiet, the peacefulness of being the only one left to finish up his work. It was late, around 9 p.m, and the office felt strange. He brushed it off, telling himself it was just his tiredness playing tricks on him. Then the phone rang. Startled, Mark glanced over at the desk phone. It was an internal call, the number showing as unknown. He picked up the receiver, not even thinking twice. "Hello?" His voice echoed a little too loudly in the empty room. Silence. A shiver crawled down his spine as he held the receiver, waiting for a response. Was it a prank? A telemarketer? His breath quickened as a faint breathing came through the line. It wasn't normal. It wasn't human. It was distorted, like something trying to hold a conversation but unable to speak properly. His stomach churned. "Hello?" He tried again, his voice strained. The breathing grew heavier, closer, like someone was right there in the room with him, their breath hot against his ear. He turned around sharply, expecting to see someone standing behind him, but the office remained eerily still. Then, in a guttural voice, something whispered, "Mark, we're watching you." Frozen in terror, Mark dropped the phone. It clattered to the desk, and the line went dead. His heart raced, pulse pounding in his ears. He slowly rose from his desk and turned to the door, planning to leave and call for help. But as he reached the door frame, his office lights flickered and then went out, plunging him into complete darkness. He felt the cold air on his neck, a sudden drop in temperature. The hairs on his arm stood on end. And that's when he heard it. The soft tap of footsteps coming closer. Was it his mind playing tricks on him again? Or was someone else really there lurking in the shadows? Transition. You've heard the whispering, the breathing. But what if the real terror was waiting for you in the dark corners of your office? What would you do if the sounds of your own footsteps echoed in the hallway, but they weren't just yours? Stay tuned, because the next story might make you question every shadow in your workplace. Story 2. The Unseen Hand. Lena had always been the kind of person who felt comfortable working alone. It gave her peace to focus, to get lost in her tasks without the chatter of the office. So when she found herself alone one evening, finishing up a report, it wasn't unusual. The office was quiet, the soft hum of the air conditioning the only sound accompanying her typing. The clock ticked away, marking the passing of time, when suddenly a cold breeze swept across her desk. She paused, fingers hovering over the keyboard, and glanced at the window. The blinds were shut. There was no way a breeze could have come in. She felt uneasy but dismissed it. Maybe the air conditioning had kicked up. She went back to typing, but the cold returned. This time, it felt sharper, almost like someone had opened a window right behind her. Lena pulled her sweater tighter around her shoulders, turning to look over her shoulder, but the office was empty. Just as she was about to shrug it off, she felt it, a pressure on the back of her neck, like a hand was resting there gently but firmly. Her heart raced, and she froze, staring ahead, every muscle tensed. She dared not move. What was happening? Without thinking, she spun around in her chair, her breath coming in short, panicked bursts. The room was still, but something felt different now. The air felt thick, almost oppressive, like it was closing in on her. And that's when she saw it. A handprint, smeared in a dark, oily substance, appeared on her computer screen. It moved slowly, as if dragging along the surface. And then, it stopped. Lena bolted from her chair, her heart pounding in her chest, eyes wide with terror. She rushed toward the door, only to find it was locked. She turned back to the screen. The handprint was gone, but there was something else now. A single word typed across the screen. Leave. Lena's legs buckled beneath her as she fell to the floor, her hands trembling. It was the final straw. She knew she wasn't alone anymore, and she was no longer welcome. Transition. Could you have stayed in that room knowing you weren't alone? Or would you have run, like Lena? What would you do if the very place you worked turned against you? The next story is even darker, and trust me, it's not one you want to miss. Story 3. The Staring Man. Rob had always thought of himself as someone who could handle being alone in the office. But tonight was different. The air felt too still, too heavy. The silence was almost oppressive, making every little noise stand out. It was 10 p.m., and he was finishing up an urgent report for a client. The rest of the office had been deserted for hours, the faint sound of traffic from the street below barely audible through the thick glass. He glanced up at the clock, then back down at his work. That's when he saw him. A man standing at the far end of the office, his silhouette outlined by the dim light. Rob blinked and rubbed his eyes, thinking he was imagining things. But no. The man was still there, standing motionless, staring directly at him. A chill ran down Rob's spine. He didn't recognize the man. He was wearing a dark jacket, his features obscured by the shadows. Rob called out, "Hey, can I help you?" No response. The man just stood there, watching. Rob's hand hovered over his phone, ready to dial security, but something made him pause. It wasn't the man's presence that made him uneasy. It was the way he was looking at him, like he knew something Rob didn't. It was a gaze that sent a cold shiver straight to his bones. He stood up, slowly, trying to steady his breath. "Can I help you?" he repeated, his voice now shaking slightly. The man didn't move. He just kept staring. Rob took a few cautious steps forward, but as he did, the man seemed to melt into the shadows, vanishing from sight. Rob's pulse raced as he scanned the office, but there was no sign of him. The man was gone. He let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. But as he turned back toward his desk, the office lights flickered and then went out. In the pitch-black darkness, Rob heard it. The slow, deliberate creak of the office door opening behind him. Was it the man? Or was something worse lurking in the shadows? Conclusion. 3 stories. 3 terrifying accounts of what happens when you're alone at work. But you can't escape the question. Could you survive a night like this? Would you be able to stay calm when the darkness starts closing in around you? Or would you run, screaming into the unknown? Think about it the next time you find yourself alone after hours, because sometimes the terror you feel isn't just in your mind.